Welcome to Soul Purpose Magic Podcast. I'm your host, Nileemakhan. I'm a mindset coach and a meditation teacher, founder of the Aligned Life School of Transformational Coaching and Education. This podcast is for anyone who is on a journey of radical self-love and acceptance of who they are. As a highly sensitive individual and empath, I have always felt there is a need for a sense of community, folks like us, to dream, to be who they are. That's what I intend to create, a safe community space. In this episode, I interview Marytha Johnson, who is a coach, my soul sister, and lifelong friend. I love her so much, and it brings me so much joy to be interviewing her about her journey to her soul purpose magic that inspires her every day. Marytha helps people live their authentic lives by guiding them to find their own inner voice, to cultivate a deeper self-love, and to practice living playfully and intentionally. Marytha knows that when you are able to prioritize yourself and your life, you are able to shape your world into the place you would love to live in. Her clients are often teachers, nurses, healers, single moms, recovering codependents, or moms with a full nest, who are feeling less and less inspired in their professional roles, yet still craving an internal inner calling to help others. Marytha has worked in city government, education, and in the personal finance sector. She has loved supporting women, students of all ages and families, to enact their agency by pairing key information with clear and practical actions. She has facilitated motivational classrooms, personal financial coaching, and group life coaching. Marytha holds a bachelor's degree in sociology from the College of Worcester. Outside of her passion for coaching, Marytha loves exploring the world, reading, and playing at the beach. So, let's get started. Welcome, Marytha. I'm so happy to have you over at Soul Purpose Magic Podcast. And, listeners who are joining in, just to give you a little bit of background, I've known Marytha for over more than 10, 12 years. We went to college together. And she, I feel like we've known each other for lifetimes. So I'm just so grateful to have you here. How are you doing today?
I am doing well. I just want to thank you so much for having me on Soul Purpose Magic. And I'm really excited and I'm honored to be here with you today. And I'm honored to do this podcast with you. And I'm honored to see how you are expanding so much in the world and able to help other people to really find their own center, find their own calm and peace and their true knowing through you and everything that you do. So I'm really honored to do this. I'm really honored to be here.
Thank you. Oh, thank you. I felt all of that. So since this podcast is about our soul purpose magic, I'm curious to know, how would you describe your soul purpose magic?
I think my soul purpose magic has been continually expanding. And I find that it is to help people, particularly women, journey to their most authentic and expressive selves. And in their lives, there's so many pulls on what you're supposed to do, what I'm led to do, what my mom says I should do, what all the people in my school are doing. There's so many pulls on your direction in life. And oftentimes you get to a place and you find that you're lost. I don't enjoy what I'm doing. I feel stressed out. I really have no idea why I woke up in the morning, and I just feel heavy and sad and lost and not sure who I am even. So I find that my soul purpose magic is being able to guide people and guide myself through being able to be that authentic version of yourself and understand who you are and what you're here to do and what your soul's calling is.
Beautiful. Oh, and it's such a gift to all of us that you're sharing that with everybody who, is in alignment, who are coming in your path. So why is this work important to you?
I believe in this work, it's really important to me because you can see when people are authentically living themselves, living their full soul's calling. It is kind of magical. It's kind of attractive. It's kind of unstoppable. It feels really powerful and kind of unrestrained. And I believe when we open to honestly giving and nurturing our inner selves and granting permission for us to be guided internally and be able to do that without restraint, we're being able to live in a way that opens doors, that opens so much space for other people to do so, and for you to help other people through your soul's calling. So I think this work is super important because it not only allows you to reach into the depths of who you are, but through that, it magically allows other people to do that as well. Through you activating your soul purpose, it allows others to do the same, I find that so amazing.
Yeah, and to listeners who are joining in and who are not familiar with the word, with the phrase "this work," what is actually this work?
Yeah, so authentic self. So authentic self, it can be a lot of different things. Like authenticity, it's a really powerful word that kind of strikes people instantly. And authenticity can mean a myriad of things. But the way I kind of describe authenticity is knowing that in deeply feeling in your body, deeply feeling in your core self that you are doing what you're supposed to be doing. You are living what you're supposed to live. You are breathing the way that you're supposed to be living. You're supposed to be breathing in. Everything is good. So even in that fear, even in that struggle, even in that kind of milieu, the winding of your life, you know that, okay, I'm driven by something that is deep within me, that is calling me, that is pushing me forward, and kind of giving me those nudges from deep within. So I find that authentic self is your inner self, your soul self, your soul's calling, the self that is infinite, asking to be used on this earth plane now.
Beautiful. So on the journey towards your authentic self, right? I'm just curious to learn about your journey towards the authentic self that is you, right? In alignment with your soul purpose, magic, in your essence. So how would you describe that journey?
So for me, that journey it's been a long journey, in fact, and I think it's a longer still journey. I find that uncovering your authentic self, living the truest version of yourself is an ever flowing, ever growing, ever changing journey. And from the time that I became conscious of, hey, there's this little voice in me. there's more than just this. Like there's this little voice in me that really kind of loves me and wants me to live the fullest version of myself. So that smallest bit of recognizing that I do have an inner voice was the beginning of this whole process. So it became a kind of curiosity of like, okay, if there's this inner voice, what is it trying to say? And it seems very soft and nurturing, and it feels really impactful, but what is it nudging me to do? What is it asking? What does it want? And it really was this hearing my inner voice that allowed me that expanded that curiosity into understanding what do you want? What do you want? So a lot of this journey towards my authentic self has began and also continues through the process of questions and the process of honesty and the process of being open and surrender. So at each stage, I find that I become a more expanded version of my inner being. And what that looks like for me is starting when I first started to notice that I had an inner voice when I started to journal. And I started journaling, it was just in college, in fact. It was just in college. It was my junior year, and I was in a codependent relationship. And at the time, I didn't really know it. But I was in a codependent relationship, and I used my journal every night as a way to just release everything that was in my mind, And on that process, I went to my first therapy session. And in my first therapy session, my counselor, he was like, "Hey, have you considered not thinking about the other person, but thinking about you?" And I was like, "Oh, no, I don't need help. There's nothing wrong with me. There's something wrong with my partner." And he suggested, "Okay, all right, I want you to really just ask yourself in your journal, ask yourself, what is it that you want to know? What is it that you need clarity on? Like, what is it that that you need?" So in this process, I'm like, "Oh, there are things that I need. Huh? Who knew?" So I just became more and more involved with journaling. And as I left college, I went to a second counselor, and this is when I figured out I had a whole new voice, a deeper voice. And that counselor actually had me to do a really interesting activity. It was like a 2 chairs activity. And in one chair, you ask yourself a question, and then you switch to sit in a different chair and you answer the question. And I was like, "Oh, this is a silly exercise, but I'm open to it." And in this exercise, I was literally blown away. I was like, "Oh my gosh, there's more than one voice in me." And this only deepened my curiosity, and this only deepened my desire to really uncover, like, okay, what is this other voice? What is this other voice? So along this journey, and it's been a long journey, and a fun journey, and sometimes a really intense journey. But along this path of like uncovering and discovering this inner voice, it's been really amazing. It's been really kind of magical. And through this, it has been a lot of healing, a lot of meditation, a lot of really releasing, surrendering, letting go. It's been kind of a journey into woo-woo, the woo-woo of the world. It's really been kind of an opening and a reappreciation of everything. So yeah, that's a little bit about my journey.
Yeah. It's the breadcrumbs, right? Like following one thing after another, and just and therapy, it can be so useful, so helpful. And because my podcast is relatively new, and my listeners are also, I'm guessing that they may be more curious to learn a little bit about, you've mentioned that you were in a codependent relationship, and you also you support clients who were former codependents or are healing, or are interested in healing from codependency.
Yes.
And I feel like codependency is the silent plague.
Soul killer.
Yeah, it's just affecting so many of us because we learn it as a coping mechanism, and there's so much shame around talking about it because people feel that we are shaming our caregivers, our families. But what I try to tell people who are recovering from this or who are willing to look within is that to not blame our caregivers or parents, because they have done the best that they could do with the resources they have had, with the healing they have had, with the self-love they experienced. And it is a gift that we have as individuals in this lifetime to heal from that, because I don't know if you know, if you believe in something like I believe in that we actually choose our parents, we choose our families before coming to the
Yes,
earth as souls, right? We have these soul contracts, and oftentimes we as folks who have awareness about these things, we're very different from our families. We are very sensitive, we are empaths, but our family members, other siblings, other family members may have no idea, like, what are we talking about? And we are the cycle breakers, right? We are the chosen ones to break the generational trauma, like this learned coping mechanism, which is not really ideal. So it's really a gift that we can give to ourselves, that as you journey towards your authentic self, you gotta question, what are my coping mechanisms that I have learned from my parents or caregivers or schools, teachers, whatever that situation was. And I'm just curious if you would like to talk a little bit about, like, what is it about codependency and how is that connected to the authentic self or the journey to authentic self?
Yes. I just want to vibe with that for a little bit, because everything you just said right there has been a part of my personal journey as well. Which is so interesting, because I didn't know that was a part of your journey. So for me, I, just like you said, when I was a child, my father was alcoholic, and I was kind of like the faux partner to my father. So I learned behaviors to kind of minimize myself and kind of cater to the needs of my family, and particularly my father. And it was really interesting that the more I catered to the needs of others, the less I knew myself and the less I felt myself. But it's also kind of this interesting feeling that I didn't really understand until my 20s. Like, I didn't really understand like what codependency was until my 20s. And really how devastating it can be, and how devastating it can be for you as your life, you living your life's purpose, and you living, in fact, your own life. So in my understanding of self, codependency was a huge part of that. When I realized that that my relationship was indeed codependent, it actually kind of happened kind of surreptitiously. It was kind of I was talking to a really good friend. So in my hometown, I had like a girls group of, there were like 4 or 5 of us, and one day we were just chatting, and I was telling them about my relationship, and then one of my friends said, "Hey, I think you might need to look at the word codependency." And I was like, "Okay, blah 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 blah." So it nestled in my head somewhere, because maybe like 3-4 months later, I'm like this red flashing codependency, and then my curiosity just like got me. It's like, okay, let me look at this up, and I was like, oh my gosh, my whole life. So it was kind of understanding what codependency is, and how being basically living through another person is was really kind of leaving me nowhere. And it was also interesting because I always felt like I'm a helpful person. I'm a person that is really good at love, and I'm a person who's really good at giving, and like I'm very helpful in sharing, and this is just who I am. But I didn't realize that those are all mechanisms as a way to hide from my true self, as a way to protect my vulnerable self, as a way to protect myself from being seen, from being from having the ability to be rejected in the world, to having the ability to be kind of withheld, like from my inner self, from my true self being seen and then rejected would just be the most crumbling thing for me. So I lived very much in kind of this paradigm of codependency for a very long time, very, very, very long time. And I was in a codependent relationship for 10 years. That relationship was 10-year long relationship. And it began to end. The relationship began to come to an end when I started to listen to my inner voice, those little nudges, that little phrase in that journal that just hit really deep in my heart, that those whispers from friends that just nudged in my brain, that nestled in my brain, and really be able to give myself permission to be okay with myself in whatever that state was, to give myself permission to not be loved by this particular person, to give myself permission to not want to be, to face rejection from somebody that I feel like loves me, to be able to say, no, this is the way I feel. So it was those tiny little moments through listening to myself that I began to realize, hey, you can love yourself. I was like, oh, I didn't realize that I wasn't loving myself. But in that codependent relationship, there was no space. I left myself no space to love myself. In fact, I found myself running from those occasions where I could get to know myself. I found myself being fearful of who I was internally, because I was scared that if I was in touch with who I was centrally, then this whole relationship would immediately crumble down. My whole life would change. Everything around me I could lose in an instant. So this process of being willing and journeying to your authentic self, and this whole process for me with understanding the full damage that codependency can have had on me, was really integral to my healing, my whole healing, and my journey towards self-love, my journey towards myself, my journey towards helping others to find that deep love, that deep permission, that deep nurturance that comes from within, and being able to stand by that, even in the fear of loss, and even in the fear of change, because ultimately it is a journey, and that change will come in. Sometimes there is a loss, and what I've found is that all of the losses that I've had have been kind of fortunate in hindsight.
Yeah. And I'm just so proud of you, and so grateful that you chose to pursue yourself, that you chose to see like what's gonna remain after everything I'm trying so desperately to hold on to, trying to keep it all together. If it crumbles, what happens? And that ultimately puts us in a state of deep surrender. And only when we know how to deeply surrender, connect with the divine, connect with spirit, that we start to learn to love ourselves. And that is the opposite of your authentic self, right? The opposite of authentic self is codependency.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Because we as children, we need to feel safe. And when we grow up in environments where maybe our physical needs were met, like maybe we were provided food, clothing, shelter, and everything looked good from the outside, but emotionally, when we don't feel safe, and then as a child, our first core need is to feel safe. It's the root chakra, need. And when that is in question, right, because of our parents being human beings with flaws, with their own shadows, right,
Mm.
showing up in however they could show up, puts us in a position where we feel like we're not safe. And that's how we start becoming the peacekeeper of the family, the mender of everything, and the fixer of everybody, giver of everything.
Yes.
And when we are codependent, we are the most inauthentic self. We are doing such injustice towards ourselves because we are not true. We have no integrity because we have no sense of self. And our sense of self is generated from what other people think about us. So it can be really, really scary. And I have healed a lot. I have learned to let go of many things, and I have allowed many things to collapse and crumble. And at the end of the day, we don't die. Like, when we face that fear that, oh my God, what's going to happen? And then only, you know, like, I don't know if you know this. I don't know. I think that the word is Satori and Kensho, I think. I could be wrong. I could be butchering the words. I'm sorry if I am. But it's like
I'm
when you're
here.
resisting the natural flow of life, universe will push back and balance it. So it's just like that. Like when we are in that vibration of not loving ourselves, universe will shake things, put us in a situation where we have to surrender. Like you had to surrender. You had to let go of that relationship for 10 years, and it must have been so difficult. And that requires a lot of surrendering. And when that illusion, right, that illusion of love or safety or whatever it provided for you, when that dissolved, you were only left with you.
Yeah.
So that is my invitation to all of you listeners, that this requires going through the dark night of the soul, right? What Marytha has described is part of that uh, pursuing our authentic self will require us to let structures, people's expectations, all of these burdens, you gotta allow to let it go. And it can only start with deep surrendering. So yeah, and I'm just so proud of you for doing that. And because you chose to do that, you're able to be in this position as a coach, as a facilitator, and offer support and hold space for others who are daring to have the courage to heal from this, right? So so beautiful. And I'm just so grateful to be here to share this with everybody else.
Yes.
So yeah, no, go
I
ahead.
just wanted to, yeah, okay. I just felt a call to like deepen into that idea of surrender. Because every time I find that surrender is, it seems kind of so heavy, so big, so kind of there's a lot of fear that can come when you're at the edge of surrender, because at the other side of surrender is inevitably change. It's inevitable change. And I find that that surrender is an essential process. It's an essential part of the journey toward authentic self. It is an essential part of the journey toward authentic self, surrender. And that surrender, and just like you mentioned before, is really just about you surrendering to everything else that is not. Surrendering, letting go, being able to say, okay, I don't have it, I don't know it, I really don't understand, I would like to be led. And being able to surrender to the trueness, the truth that is you. Being able to surrender to the nudges, be able to surrender your ego that says, hey, you have to look this way, you have to talk this way, you have to smell this way, you have to walk this way, you have to impress this person, you have to do this, you have to be something other than you are. And I think the surrendering process is a pivotal process. Once you get to the point where you're able to surrender, where the universe challenges you to surrender, where it shakes you up to a place where you're at the point of surrender, that's when the magic begins. That's when I find that you can often have that courage where you didn't have that before, because at your core you're shaken. You're shaken, and there's no longer space for you to kind of waddle in between. Okay, this is the life that I had, and this is the life that I'm going to have. It's like, no, there's nothing now. There's nothing now. You are in loving hands. Relax and follow through the path. And I think one of the really important things other than surrender is courage. And I find that so many women that I see in this space, this healing space, this feminine healing space in all of the different myriads of work, have this courage, and this courage, this inner courage, this guided courage, this courage that all starts and lives through surrender, and all is guided through surrender. And I find myself even still nervous about surrender. It's like, oh, I don't want to start over again. It's like, you're not starting over again. Relax. Surrender. It's like, oh no, but everything's going to change again. It's like, yes, everything's going to change again. And it is good. And it is. And it's like, okay, yes, you're right. Okay. So I find that surrender is a really important part of the journey toward authentic self, and courage is just as equally important. And I find that when you're able to own your own life, when you're able to accept responsibility, like, this is my life. This is my life. And I can live my own life through myself. I can live my own life in this body, in this space, in this time, right now. And this is good. Like, when you're able to own your own life first, you're able to transition to a space that becomes open to more possibilities. And so for me, that next step is loving yourself. So the way I kind of have seen my journey toward authentic self, and the kind of the journey that I guide others through, is one, to own your life, and then to be able to love yourself. So practice those loving habits, be able to forgive yourself, be able to accept love, to be able to accept yourself as love, to be able to accept everything about you, which is it's a big journey. It's a big journey. And then next from there, we're able to learn about ourselves. We're able to, from a space of loving and being nurturing and being supportive to yourself, you're able to give yourself permission to do things that you've never done. Give yourself permission to say things that seem scary. Give yourself permission to be and be open to the world's surprises and all the surprises, and just practice getting to know everything, that maybe getting to know yourself with a sense of curiosity, getting to know yourself with a sense of, maybe I don't feel this way, or maybe I don't actually like that, or maybe I do really like that, or maybe this thing that I'm scared of, I'm really deeply excited about. So giving yourself permission to learn, to get to know yourself personally is a essential part of that. And then I find like the next stage is being able to play, being able to just be in the world and practice having fun, and practice like living through fun, and being able to find like what it is that ignites you, what it is that really makes you smile, what it is that brings you joy, what it is that makes your heart feel light and open and excited, you know? And then from there, I find that from there, after you're able to play in life, you can find kind of an intentionality. So you can say, oh, hey, this is fun. I want that. And you can live from a space where you're like, oh, I want that. I can claim the things that I want in life. I can live through the desires. I can practice acting through things that make me feel good, that make me ignite, that feel inspired, that call me from inside, that allow me to accept myself, allow me to share my full self in the world, and allow me to share my own value with other people as well. So I find that this journey toward authentic self is it's a bit bold. Is extremely bold, in fact. And there's so many mysteries, and there's so much to be gained from it as well.
Thank you for sharing that. And Marytha just described this 5-step process that she takes her clients through, this transformation process of starting with owning your life or taking responsibility. And I feel that this is the most important step, to take responsibility of the role that we have played in our own suffering. And this is not to say that the trauma was justified, or the perpetrator did whatever they did was right. I'm not saying that, but we also enable people to treat us. And when we are kids, we don't know how to protect us because we never saw that being modeled for us. So this is why we carry on as adults with stuff we learned as kids, and we don't know how to take responsibility, right? And then we don't know how to set boundaries, like for example, right? Like not knowing how to set boundaries, not knowing how to feel secure with your own decisions, right? Not taking opinions from other people for making your own decisions, because you were taught that, like many of us were taught that, right? So taking responsibility is the first step for authentic transformation, for towards the journey towards your authentic self. And then definitely, as you said, like loving yourself, learning to know yourself. Only when you know your own self, like, how do I like my coffee? How do I like my toast? How do I like my pancakes? And that is the way towards intimacy. Intimacy is a journey where you get to see you. It's in to me see. Like, I know it's just come when if you say it all together, it's intimacy, but it's the process of learning to see yourself. And when you're learning to see yourself and make yourself feel seen, heard, right, and understood, only then you're able to attract people who are able to meet you there. And of course, being playful will raise your vibration, and and living intentionally, right, claiming your desires, claiming the results you desire. So definitely, that's a beautiful process that you take your clients through. So I was just curious to know, like, through this process, how do you kind of, as you coach your clients through this process, what are some challenges that come up, right, that you see, and what advice would you like to share with the listeners today who are interested to pursue this process, right? What are some possible setbacks that come up, and how to, have certain practices in place that can hold you accountable or help you self-soothe? I'm just curious about that.
Yeah. So a lot of times I find that the biggest setbacks, well, not biggest, but most common setbacks, are the feeling of unworthiness. Like, okay, I don't deserve something. I don't deserve something. And often that thing that they feel that they don't deserve is love. So I find that at the beginning, especially at the beginning, there's this hesitancy to really love themselves. And it's very scary. It can be very scary if you have cultivated a pattern of ignoring or diminishing or saying no to yourself. It's a really hard flip. It's a hard turn to say, like, no, Like, I matter, I'm important, my life is important, I love you, I love myself, I love you, I love myself. And being able to cultivate those habits of love, and being able to cultivate that support, that self-support, that saying, hey, it's okay, we've got this. Hey, it's okay, I love you. Hey, it's okay to make a mistake. Hey, it's okay to be friendly to myself. Hey, it's okay to talk to myself in a way that is enlightening and life-giving and supportive. So I find that oftentimes it's very hard for literally people to look in the mirror and say, I love you. I find that that is a really, really tough part. And a really tough part of the process is accepting love from yourself, which is, it's foundational, and it's also very, very much tied to everything, like your whole life experience. And I find that that inability to love the self has been super conditioned throughout their entire life. And so it's a hard shift to say, okay, if I love myself, then all of these things, then it becomes a recognition of all of the things that I did that were unloving to myself. So it becomes it's a huge process of grief, even. Like, oh, I'm so sorry I was not able to love you in the way that I now know that I can love you. So it's this huge kind of this grieving process of the love that you neglected yourself, or even oftentimes not knowing that you were neglecting yourself love. So I find that love and is a really, really tough part of this whole journey towards self, of your truest self. And I find that it is an ever strengthening, ever growing process, in an ever evolving process. Like, the more you learn to love yourself, the more ways you find that you can love yourself, the more ways you find that you can deepen the love for yourself, the more desire that you have to experience deeper and more fulfilling levels of love. So I find that the the initial feeling of worthiness, unworthiness, and that ability to open to love, and ability to open to loving yourself is really, really tough. And I find that it's very common, especially with my clients who have made kind of the habit of putting themselves before others, putting their idea of putting their priorities, putting others' priorities before themselves, putting themselves on the back burners to take care of other people. So having that process of, hey, I matter, I can put myself first, I am the most valuable prize to myself, is a really initially tough transition, I find, and a really powerful transition as well.
Yeah, and that brings me to some of the mantras and affirmations that you share with your clients, right? To hold them accountable, or to provide them that loving support. If you'd like to share those with us today.
Yeah. So for kind of each stage of the process, like owning your life, loving yourself, learning yourself, living playfully, living intentionally, there's a mantra, one or two mantras that I encourage that are used just to help really get you into the habit of supporting yourself, and get you into the habit of recognizing that you can do this and there is support. So one of the mantras that I use to help people radically accept radical responsibility for their lives is, my life is my own to use, my life is important. My life is my own to use, my life is important. My life is my own to use, my life is important. And this has been a really key one for me, particularly. to take full responsibility of your life and realize that this is this is your life term. This is your body. This is your space. This is your soul's calling here in this time on earth. So your life is your own to use, and your life is important. So let's use it, and let's really hold the power in their importance. So with loving yourself as a habit, I'll often say, whatever I say to myself, I will say it with love. Whatever I say to myself, I will say it with love. Whatever I say to myself, I will say it with love. And this kind of breaks a lot of those habits of unsupportive talk, of unsupportive like mind chatter, of those harsh judgments towards yourself. And this mantra really helps with that. To honestly investigate yourself. So to give yourself permission to be the you that you are. It's literally just that. I give myself permission to be honest. I give myself permission to love. I give myself permission to cry right now. I give myself permission to be angry. I give myself permission to walk down the street. I give myself permission to wear that shirt. I give myself permission to do anything that you know that your calling is there for, but you feel some type of resistance to. And I give myself permission every single day of my life. I find I give myself permission every single day of my life. And within this permission, it's kind of just a freeing. It's a freeing of self, and just a recognition that like I can do this and I deserve to do this, and this is me, and this is okay. So I really value that one a lot. I give myself permission to blah blah blah, anything. Everything in life is a choice, so choose. So I choose blah blah blah. I vow to honor my true self. So everything in life is a choice, so I choose to live authentically. I vow to honor my true self. Everything in life is a choice, so I choose to help people. I vow to honor my true self. Everything in life is a choice, so I choose to wake up with a smile on my face. I vow to honor my true self. So I find that this is really helpful in twofolds, because it says you do have choice, and you have a choice to live the way that you'd like to live. So it's both validating that you have choices and you can choose either way, and that you can and have the ability to live your truest self and honor that. So I find that these mantras are really, really powerful in helping me through my day, helping me through my life, helping me through my journey, helping me to support others, helping others to support themselves, and having clients even help others to support themselves, like their families and their friends. So I really, really value these mantras.
I really resonated with the affirmation for I give myself permission to, because I have been healing my inner child's need to be perfect. So I was just looking at this journal I have, and I wrote that I give myself permission to be imperfect. And so my inner child has a lot of pent-up anger that she somehow, when she was a little child, she felt that she has to have everything perfect. And now I'm at a stage where I see her, and I felt that that's something I can allow. So it just helped me remember this affirmation that I give myself permission to be imperfect, that it's safe for me to be imperfect. It's safe for me to be how I am. So I feel that just I invite listeners to repeat these affirmations or write them down, put them up on your wall, and invite yourself to repeat these, and you will see that something will shift within you, because we are designed for evolution, we're designed for expansion and growth. your soul will recognize this language, because this is the language of love, highest for highest vibrational, you know, consciousness that's there. And you will see that the inner critic or the ego stories are, they will slowly dissolve. So I'm just so happy that, I could have you over my podcast, and I would love for you to share what are your upcoming or current offers that listeners can, find more about, or how to connect with you, so that they can take that support for finding their authentic self, going through that transformation, and healing themselves and having the life that they really want, right?
Yeah, excellent. I'm so thrilled to be here, and this was so much fun. I'm really excited to get to spend some time with you, the lovely Nilima. Okay, oh, you can find me on Instagram at marm_carm. And my website is marythajohnson.coachesconsole.com. Currently, I always do private coaching, one-on-one coaching, which goes through the transformation cycle. It's a 5-stage transformation. And it really is to expand into your truest self, your most authentic self. Currently, I'm offering a group coaching that's starting on April 2nd. It's a 6-week virtual group coaching session, and it's called The Call to Love, Deepening How You Love Yourself and Everyone Else. So this is, in these sessions, we'll focus and explore on deepening love, both internally and externally. We'll spend time practicing love with our inner child, our mother and spirit, and expanding out to friends, family, and the wider world. So this is my group offering. And then again, I have personal coaching, one-on-one coaching all the time. And you can find me at Instagram at marm_carm, and my website at marythaconsulting.coachesconsole.com.
Lovely. And I will be leaving Marytha's socials and her website in the show notes, where you can find her. And I can vouch for her that she is a wonderful spirit, and that she will love you and hold a space for you. And I'm so excited for anybody who is taking that step towards healing. And you are going to find someone who's going to be your guide and mentor for your whole life. So as we close our podcast episode, what kind of, if you'd like to leave our listeners with any kind of last, not nothing is really last, but anything to take with them, if there's one thing that they can take away from this episode, what would you like to remind them, right?
I would like to remind them that the inner call that you feel is real. It is true. It is special. It's important. It is valuable. And if you listen to it, it could be a little scary, but there's so much to reap when you follow your inner self. There's so much to reap when you go toward the path of your authentic self. There is a whole different life in your authentic self, living through your authentic self.
I felt all of that. Oh, so beautiful. Thank you so much, love, Marytha. I love you so much for coming and gracing your presence today in my podcast. And listeners, thank you for listening. Follow Soul Purpose Magic Podcast in Spotify as well as in YouTube. Leave us a heart emoji or your favorite emoji in the comments below, and share this podcast with your dear ones or your loved ones, so that they can feel inspired to pursue their authentic self. And till then, be yourself, and we all love you. And let's stay connected.